Chapter 9, A Need to Think. After I got home and was preparing this book to submit to the publisher, I still could not decide, even up to the last moment, whether or not I should include all of Anastasia's sayings in the manuscript. When Anastasia spoke of a splendid future for Russia, which could be realized through the establishment of family domains, everything she said made sense. Her idea quickly caught on among my readers. People began to act. Then, in the book, Who Are We?, when in an emotional answer to a question she referred to Christ Jesus as her older brother, I wrote about it. A number of readers, mainly faithful Christians, began to object. In the book before that, I had written how, in answer to my questions as to whether she might name any clerics who could understand her, she replied that Pope John Paul II would help her. This was Book 4, Chapter 24, Take Back Your Motherland, People. This prompted fresh doubts on the part of a few Catholic readers. Such sayings of hers left me with a constant series of doubts of my own. Should I write in my books about Anastasia's unusual actions, words, and behavior? Are they beneficial or harmful? Will they not cause some readers to entertain doubts about the obvious practical ideas of transforming society through the improvement of the living conditions and the way of life on the part of individual families? Besides, I wasn't completely free of doubt in regard to the content of her sayings. Now I ask you, what am I to make of phrases like Christ Jesus' sister or Pope John Paul II will help? If you look through the Bible, there is no mention anywhere that Jesus had any brothers or sisters. And then all at once there occurred an event that could be called super sensational. And in connection with this, Anastasia's unusual sayings again and again gave me pause for reflecting on the tremendous scope of man's true possibilities. This is what happened. All at once I heard that the Vatican had publicized sources mentioning two of Christ Jesus' sisters. Only I don't remember whether they were sisters or cousins. I heard this brief news report while I was alone in my apartment taking care of some routine tasks. The radio and the television were both on at the time, and so I can't say for certain where I heard it. I think it may have been the TV news. After hearing this each time I sat down at my desk, I couldn't help picking up my notes with Anastasia's unusual sayings, which I had previously decided not to include in the new book. Now I was having second thoughts about whether I had made the right choice. Among these sayings, there was this one in particular. The American president, George Bush, in a highly unconventional move, without being aware of it himself, will save his country from a terrible disaster and protect the world from a war unprecedented in its potential destructive influence over the whole earth. Following the disastrous acts of terrorism in America on September 11th, 2001, and the subsequent military operation, war in fact, in Afghanistan, with direct American involvement, this saying of Anastasia's seemed to completely contradict what had actually happened. However, upon analyzing the information available in the press and on the TV, I became more and more convinced that the events of September 11th in America could help people uncover a major mystery, could help head off an even larger scale global acts of terrorism in various countries of the world. And they will be averted only providing this secret is exposed. Again and again, I read over all Anastasia's extraordinary sayings, and here is what I discovered. On September 11th, 2001, in the United States of America, there occurred a series of large-scale acts of terrorism. Several jets with passengers aboard took off with unknown pilots from the New York airports and immediately altered their scheduled flight path. One after the other, the planes tore into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center, along with other strategic targets. Over and over again, gruesome images of the crashes lit up TV screens all over the world. Soon afterward, Osama bin Laden and his organization were declared to have masterminded the attack. A little while later, the American president and the government secured the support of a number of European countries and Russia and began bombing Afghanistan, where, according to available intelligence, the chief culprit and members of his organization were hiding out. So then what is the mystery here? After all, images of the results of these terrorist acts and the ongoing anti-terrorism military operation were shown many times over and are still being used in TV news clips several times a day. The mystery lies in the complete absence or cover-up of the causes of the acts of terrorism, in the complete absence of logic, not only on the part of those who carried them out, but of those who thought them up. The mystery lies in the fact that the press didn't even try to make a halfway significant analysis of the causes of what happened, as though somehow all the mass media had been issued an injunction not to investigate them. What we see and hear in the media on a daily basis touches upon only the fact of what occurred. The constant repetition tends to make the extraordinary commonplace, something as routine as the daily reports of highway accidents. According to media briefings, this is what happened. Some extremely wealthy terrorist, generally assumed to be bin Laden, planned and carried out, through his agents, a series of notorious acts of terrorism, which resulted in a huge number of casualties and exerted an unprecedented effect on people all over the world. Just what, in sum, did the mastermind behind those terrorist acts achieve? A significant part of the world community, on the head of state level, united against him. The most up-to-date technology and well-trained military units were employed to capture and destroy him. According to the official version, terrorist number 1 is hiding out in caves in the Afghan mountains. These mountains have been bombed from the air along with Taliban forces considered as collaborators with the mastermind. The developed countries, led by the USA, have joined forces to put an end to all the camps of terrorist organizations, no matter what country such camps are located in. Could the mastermind have failed to foresee the subsequent development of events? Sheer nonsense. Of course he knew that it would happen precisely that way. For a man able to evade capture by the special forces for such a long time to plan out and carry out terrorist attacks requiring serious analysis and calculation, it should not have been a difficult task to calculate the course of events which followed. Thus it turns out that this mastermind, from one point of view, is an astute strategist and tactician, capable of meticulous analysis, while from another standpoint he is an utter fool. It turns out that through his terrorist activities he has brought doom upon himself, his organization, and all terrorist organizations, even those not connected with him. The situation is utterly illogical, and consequently the actions of the community, the world community, in the struggle against terrorism may not be effective, and, if the full truth be told, dangerous, since logic dictates that the mastermind behind a terrorist act remain above suspicion. Be that as it may, one thing is clear. The picture of events that emerges from the facts reported in the mass media is a highly illogical one. In the beginning, of course, I, like many other people, did not pay much attention to this, but the news from America immediately resurrected in my thought several of Anastasia's sayings which I had decided to refrain from publishing because of their strange and extraordinary nature. But now, after what happened in America, these same sayings explain a lot, though it didn't become clear right off by any means. Here is one example. Right from the time of the Egyptian pharaohs, the rulers of state, both large and small, Redo. Right from the start, the Egyptian pharaohs, the rulers of states both large and small have been the least free people on the earth. They spend the greater part of their time in an artificial information field, compelled to submit to accepted rituals of behavior. They constantly receive a tremendous amount of routine and monotonous information, but time constraints do not allow them to analyze even that. If a ruler should make the transition from an artificial information field to a natural one, even for just 3 days, this is something dangerous for all levels of the priesthood. Dangerous too for the ruler's secular rivals. The danger lies in the possibility that the ruler might start analyzing a whole range of processes on his own, thereby freeing himself from the yoke of occult influences and freeing his people from them. A natural information field is nature at large, its appearance, fragrances, and sounds. It is only the nature of one's own domain, a place where flora and fauna treat man with love, that can protect man from occult influences on him. Now, as I sat at my desk, made of the cedar wood which Anastasia had given to me, I recalled these words, though this time they no longer seemed strange to me, as they had before. Indeed, look at what is happening, even with our own president of Russia. He is constantly meeting either with foreign heads of state or with officials from our own country. None of them just stop by to take tea. They come with all sorts of problems, and they are impatient for an immediate solution. And the press? No sooner does some sort of unusual event happen in the country than immediately the press wonders what the president's reaction will be. More bluntly, why didn't the president himself go to ground zero? And he wins approval ratings when he actually visits the place where a flood or something else has happened. But is that a good thing? And when does he have time to calmly think about and analyze the information coming in? Give us the president, the people demand the moment something occurs. That's the way it happens. That's the way it's scripted. But if it were scripted another way, the president should not be dashing off in all directions like a firefighter. He should not be briefing officials, wasting time on meetings. It is essential that he be given the opportunity to sit in his own garden, and from that perspective follow what is going on in the country, then analyze the incoming information, and from time to time take some kind of decisions. Perhaps then the people too would start to live better. What kind of nonsense is that? Many might react, as I did at first. Nonsense? But is it normal to not give someone the chance to think? Indeed, there is someone who finds it very profitable for the presidents of various countries to think as little as possible. What would happen in our country if our president were given uninterrupted time to quietly think about things? What if he were afforded the opportunity to step out of the artificial information field, at least for a time? And all at once, I was struck by a thought which made me feel as though an electric current was running through my whole body. At once, I could feel my desk warming up. An incredible stroke of intuition hit me. For some reason, in my excitement, I grabbed the telephone receiver and, without dialing any number, since she doesn't have a telephone, I cried into the mouthpiece, "Anastasia!" There was no customary dial tone, and a moment later I heard a familiar voice, easily distinguishable from all other voices in the world. The calm, pure voice of Anastasia, saying, "Hello, Vladimir. You should try not to get so excited. You see yourself what unnatural reactions excessive excitement can lead to. I shall not talk with you on the telephone. Please, calm down, get up from your desk, go out into the fresh air and into the grove of trees near your house." The dial tone returned. I put the receiver down. Wow, I thought. I really did get stirred up. I wonder whether that was really Anastasia talking to me or I was just hallucinating from excitement. I really have to go outdoors into the fresh air and calm down. A short time later, I got dressed and went out into the grove of trees next to the house. Deep in the grove, I caught sight of her. There was Anastasia, standing under a pine tree, just by the side of the pathway, smiling. Not paying any attention to her extraordinary arrival, I began talking immediately. Who saved America? Anastasia, I've got it. I did some analyzing, comparing your sayings with the events which took place in America, and it all became clear. Listen to me and correct me if I'm wrong. The series of terrorist attacks which occurred on September 11th in America, it wasn't complete. The organizers were preparing something a lot bigger, weren't they? Of course they were. I can't fill in the details, but in general, I think I've got it. But the details, can you help me here? I can. Then tell me. The mastermind behind this was counting on 6 terrorist groups to act out in succession. Each of the 6 groups was to act independently at its appointed time, without knowing anything about each other. And their leaders did not know who was behind it all, or what the ultimate goal was. Each group was made up of religious fanatics, ready to die for the cause. Only one group was comprised of people who had agreed to carry out the dirty deeds for money. The first group was to simultaneously seize control of all civil aircraft in the skies over the country, as well as those taking off from airports and those approaching American airspace. All the seized aircraft were to be used to destroy targets of national importance. 6 days prior to this, another group was to infect the water supply system in 20 major hotels. The plan was drawn up in such a way that it would be virtually impossible to trace the source of the infection and the location of the perpetrating agents. Each agent was supposed to take a room in one of the hotels, place a special device on the cold tap water, and open the tap. Instead of water flowing from the tap, the air pressure would force a deadly powder back into the whole system. After this, the tap would be shut off, and the following morning the perpetrator would be making his way to a hotel in another city. The bacteria released into the water supply system would become glutinous upon contact with the water, sticking to the sides of the pipes, swell up, multiply, and flow downward. In 12 days, they would have proliferated a great deal. In an ordinary, natural water setting, they would be incapable of proliferating. They would be destroyed by other bacteria. But such a balance is absent in an artificial supply system, where man has deprived the water of many of its natural properties. During peak consumption periods, when people would be washing themselves in the morning, for example, the water flow would cause part of the bacteria to come loose, and contaminated water would come out of the tap. People washing themselves would feel nothing at first, but after 8 to 12 days, small abscesses would appear on their skin at an increasing rate. They would grow in size and suppurate, S-U-P-P-U-R-A-T-E. The disease would be highly infectious and very difficult to cure, though the attack organizers possess an antidote. A lot of people would be infected in many countries. Soon it would be discovered that these people had all stayed at hotels, but this would become evident only after the planes crashed. It pains me to talk about the wretched deeds to be carried out by other perpetrators. The net result of all the acts of terrorism taken together were designed to produce a climate of panic and dread. Many people would begin leaving the country, taking their families with them. They would attempt to relocate their capital to banks and lands where they considered it less dangerous to live. But not every nation would agree to accept refugees from the USA. Most countries' populations would be gripped by fear and terror, especially if what had been considered the most powerful state in the world could not cope. Stop, Anastasia. Let me try to guess. After that, the masterminds would announce themselves, put forward their demands through some kind of intermediaries? Yes. But they didn't succeed in carrying out all the attacks they had envisaged. They didn't succeed in wholly frightening Americans. They didn't manage to do everything they had planned because they were forced to start acting quite a bit before they were fully prepared. That's how the illogicality arose. The terrorist acts took place, but they didn't follow through with any demands. The whole process got cut off. I think I can guess why. Because the real masterminds are to be found among the priests who are alive today, and they were frightened by Bush's actions and were obliged to jump the gun, right? Yes. Wait, Anastasia. I've got to understand this for myself. I've got to learn how to understand. This is very important. If I can get it, that means others like me will also be able to discern the reality that we live in. That means everybody will understand what must be done to better our lives. Yes, Vladimir. If you have been able to understand, other people will too. Some right off, and with others it will take time. But people will start building their lives in a splendid reality. Go on, only a little more calmly. There's no need to get so emotional about it. But I've almost got myself calmed down now. Or maybe not. This is hard to talk about without getting emotional. But hey, the President of America, Bush, has really stirred things up for those smartasses. I realize how horrified they must have been when President Bush all at once up and left for his ranch in Texas. Just 6 months after taking office, the president takes a holiday and goes away to close for a month. Goes away for close. Oh my God. And goes away for close to a month. And where does he go? Not some fashionable resort. Not some exotic castle. He goes off to his ranch, where he has a small house. Who's talking here? Is this Vladimir? Yes, this is Vladimir talking. Just making sure. Even the usual lines of presidential communication are missing. All he's got there is one very ordinary telephone, and no proliferation of TV channels, because he doesn't have a satellite dish. The media commentators mentioned these facts, but nobody realized what was behind them. I read on the internet everything I could about Bush's trip to his ranch. Just the fact was stated. They were so surprised that he took a holiday so early in his mandate, and for such a long time. He spent 26 days at his ranch. He didn't allow people from the press to visit, and he didn't invite a bunch of officials. Nobody understood. Here was George Bush, the President of the United States of America, taking a colossal step which not a single president had ever taken before in the whole history of the country. Maybe not a single ruler has thought of doing something like that over the past 5,000 or 10,000 years. You are right. They have not. The beautiful thing is that for the first time, the ruler of a huge country, the most important country in the world, much to the horror of the priests, suddenly tore himself away from his artificial information field. He simply picked himself up and left it behind. And with that, he came out from under the control of the occultists. Now I understand. Rulers are always kept under control. Their daily pronouncements are vigilantly followed, right down to their intonations and facial expressions. Their actions are subject to correction through all kinds of information tossed their way, but when Bush escaped from that field, they were horrified. They tried reaching him through occult means, the way you put it, through remote voice commands, but that didn't work. They didn't reach him. Just as you said, do you remember? You said that in nature, the flora and the fauna constituted the natural world, and it does not permit harmful occult influences to reach man. It protects man. provided man has made contact with the natural world, the one he created himself. Yes, that is it, exactly. George Bush, of course, evidently did not create what was growing on his ranch, but he was the one who selected the location. He treated it with love for the nature there, which is obvious in many facts, and nature reacted to his love. It responded to him in kind. It protected him in the same way as the vegetation growing in one's own family domain. Is something like that possible, Anastasia? When someone hasn't planted things himself, yet they still react? It is possible. Sometimes they'll react when man treats his surroundings with sincerity and love. A similar thing happened in the case of George Bush. So there you have it. I was right. Here was the president on his very own ranch. Everybody thought he wasn't receiving any information. But in actual fact, the flow of artificial information from the artificial world significantly lessened, and the flow of natural information from the world around him significantly increased. The president took it in through the rustling of leaves and the splashing water and the singing of birds and the whistling of the wind, and he meditated. He analyzed. He thought. This fact is something they will try to wipe out or to forget or refrain from talking about. They'll try to change the subject, but they won't succeed. Bush will still go down in millennia history. I've got it, Anastasia. Of course, one can say a lot of intelligent things and write a lot of songs and poems like King Solomon did in the Bible, or one can act more radically and convincingly like Bush, and thereby say to the world, look here, people, I'm rich. I have supreme power over the strongest country in the world, but none of this is the most important thing for man's being. Man's soul, along with its divine essence, prefers something else, not an artificially created world, but the natural world, created by God. My ranch is dearer to my soul than all the gold and technocratic achievements, and that's why I'm going to my ranch. You too should be thinking, people, about your aspirations in life. The American president has come up with the best, strongest, and most convincing advertisement for the family domains you spoke of. The future family domains of Russia, the whole world. All right, is it still? Wait, I'm pretty sure this is still Vladimir talking. It's hard to keep up. Okay. If people don't understand it after this, then mankind really is asleep. Or just everyone's under some kind of hypnosis. And that's why they're sick and in agony. And that's why they use drugs and go to war and kill each other. If mankind doesn't come out of this hypnosis after your words and after Bush's actions, it's going to take a disaster. Bush is the president. He's the most informed person in our technocratic world since he has access to information from special services and various think tanks. And he is aware of the information offered by the natural world. He can do comparisons and analyses. He did this and showed with his actions. Wait, another incredible coincidence. No, a whole series of coincidences, if indeed they are coincidences. You were saying, you say things and they come to pass. You told me that the start of the new millennia, You told me that at the start of the new millennia, the Russian president would pass a law concerning the land to grant every Russian family a hectare of land free of charge. Well, on February 21st, 2001, all the TV news programs carried a report on a session of the State Council of Governors under the chairmanship of the Russian president, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. The session looked at the land question, specifically private ownership of land, including farmland. The various governors assembled had different opinions on the question. The majority of the regional leaders, members of the State Council, were in favor of making land available to Russians as private property, judging by his remarks and his address, as well as by the fact that he was the one who had put the land question before the state council, it appeared that the president was also in favor of allocating land to people as private property with the right of inheritance. And so the upshot of the session was a directive to the government to prepare draft legislation on the land issue by May of 2002 and present it to the State Duma for consideration. Of course, they're talking about selling, not giving the land away for family domains, and farmland isn't even on the table, but at the same time, it's all a palpable step in the right direction. Anastasia, is this a chain of coincidences, or did you exert some kind of influence on people? You can give remote commands too, can't you? Of course you can, and you do. Have you been talking with them? Vladimir, I have not been speaking with anyone except you, and that has only been today on the telephone. I have not spoken with anybody at a distance, as you suppose, and I never influence anyone against their will. But one time when I was in Moscow, I could hear your voice, Anastasia. You weren't around, and yet I still heard your voice. Reference to Book 2, Chapter 25. Grandfather Vladimir. He was near you at the time. Many people can catch thoughts existing in space. It is a natural ability of man. Earlier, all people could do this, and there is nothing bad in it, because there is no forcing. One man can touch another at a distance with his thought ray, send him a warm cheer, and thereby speed up the thinking process. Every man possesses this thought ray, only in varying degrees. But your ray is very strong. Have you tried touching people with it? Yes, I have, but I shall not mention their names. Why not? The touch of the ray is not important here. What is important is their ability to perceive reality. All right, then, don't name any names. Only, I've got an idea. You know what I just thought of? It's terrific. After all, you're not just able to warm people with your ray at a distance, but to burn them, too. You could even turn a stone into dust. You demonstrated that once. See Book 3, Chapter 7. So, what you should do is burn up the perpetrators of the terrorist acts. Burn up the priests, along with all the demonic forces. You were telling me. I remember writing it down. With my ray I shall take but a moment to burn up the murk of age-old dogma. Stand not between the people and God. See Book 3, Chapter 24. And so forth. You remember those words of yours? Yes, I do. Then what are you waiting for? Why don't you burn them up? After all, you said that I was talking about dogmas. I would never dare burn up people with my ray. Even the masterminds behind acts of terrorism? Even with them, I would not dare. Why not? Think about what you are saying, Vladimir. What is there to think about? Everyone knows terrorism masterminds and their accessories need to be destroyed. Right away. Armies of various countries have already been mobilized to this end. Special forces. People are dying. Their efforts are to no avail. They will never find and never destroy the real masterminds. They will never be able to stop terrorism that way. Well, then all the more reason. If you can pinpoint and burn up the masterminds and their accessories in a flash, then do it. Burn them up. Vladimir, perhaps you might give some thought to, you might determine just who are the mastermind's accessories and how many of them there are. Okay, sure, yeah, I could think about that. Only I doubt I'll be able to come up with an answer. If you know who, then tell me their names. Very well. One of the accessories to terrorism is none other than you, Vladimir, along with your neighbors, and your friends, and your acquaintances. What? What are you saying, Anastasia? For myself, my friends too, I am absolutely certain we are not accessories. The lifestyle of most people, Vladimir, is fertile soil for terror and disease and all sorts of catastrophes. Is not someone who works in a factory producing machine guns and cartridges an accessory to killings? Well, if they manufacture weapons, maybe, indirectly, but you're talking about me. I don't work in an arms factory. But you smoke, Vladimir. Yeah, but what does that have to do with it? Smoking is harmful. Hence it follows that you are terrorizing your own body. My own. But we're talking about terrorizing other people. Why bring up other people right off? Everybody should carefully examine their own lifestyle, especially those living in cities. Do people who ride in motor cars not know what deadly gas their motor car is polluting the air with? Do people who live in large buildings divided up into a whole lot of flats not know that it is harmful and dangerous to live in these apartments? The way life is organized in big cities is aimed at destroying man and disorienting man in respect to natural space. The majority of people who live that way, they are the ones who are accessories to terrorism. Okay, well, let's say you're right, but now many are beginning to understand, and they're going to change their lifestyle. So, help people burn up the masterminds of terrorism with that ray of yours. Vladimir, in order to carry out your request, I would have to charge my ray with a great deal of malicious energy capable of destroying man. What of it? Go ahead and do it. After all, this man is a mastermind of terrorism. I understand that, but before I can aim malicious energy at another, I would need to concentrate and produce in myself a large amount of this energy. Afterward, it can inject itself into me or be scattered in particles among other people. Yes, I can destroy the high priest, but his program will continue to operate. And evil will find another priest, and he will be even stronger than the first one I destroyed. You must understand, Vladimir, that terrorism, murders, and crime are many thousands of years old. In Egypt, the pharaoh was poisoned by the priests for trying to oppose their actions. When scientists opened his grave in the past century, they discovered that, we're just going to call him Tut. I don't know how to pronounce his full name. We're just going to call him Tut. They discovered that Tut was only 18 years old. You have read in the Bible about the wars of the priests. You yourself might remember that it talks about in the Old Testament. Before all the Jews were to come out of Egypt, the priests quarreled among themselves. The priest Moses asked for exclusive authority over the Jews. Wow, I'm sorry, I need to read that again. The priest Moses asked for exclusive authority over the Jews, but the other priests would not accede to his request. And then the locusts came and attacked the Egyptian crops. A plague came over all of their children. Many people and cattle fell victim to the disease. And finally the Pharaoh let the Jews go. The residents of Egypt were so frightened that they gave them cattle and weapons, as well as gold and silver. In the Old Testament, it says that God was behind these attacks in Egypt. But could such attacks really have come from God? Of course they could not have. God creates life to be happy for everybody. The priests caused the terrorism in Egypt when they were attempting to divide the authority among themselves, and then they blamed God for their evil deeds. Remember too, Vladimir, how Jesus was crucified on the cross. Who was crucified along with him on the crosses next to him? Criminals. That is what the New Testament says, and that was more than 2,000 years ago. But they had crime back at that time too. They executed criminals. What was the result? Crime still exists today. It goes up with each passing day. Why? Spending thousands of years in constant commotion, people have not realized that you cannot fight evil with evil. In that kind of a fight, evil will only get bigger. That is why, Vladimir, I cannot respond to evil with malice. Well, either you can't or you don't want to. I don't suppose it makes much of a difference overall. When you speak, Anastasia, your arguments are very weighty indeed. It is quite true that mankind has not been able to cope with lawlessness for thousands of years. Maybe they've been using the wrong methods all this time. Only when you look at the current situation in the world, no alternative to suppressing terrorism by armed forces comes to mind. Another thing, more and more often today, we hear the term religious extremism. You've heard about that? Yes. They even say Islamic religious extremism. They say it's the strongest religious extremism of all. Yes, so they say. So what's to be done about that? After all, I've heard that Islam is the fastest growing religion today. Many of my acquaintances are Muslims, and they aren't bad people, but on the other hand, they are also extremists among the Islamists. They engage in large-scale terrorist activities. How can we counteract them except with military force? The first thing is not to lie. Not lie to who? To yourself. How so? You know, Vladimir, you've heard about Muslim religion extremism. Many people have been called terrorists. You are not the only one who knows that. People have been deliberately spreading news all over the world. It is not difficult to make a lot of people believe a notion like that when acts of terrorism are actually taking place and Muslims participate in them. But when we talk about Muslim terrorism, we forget about another weighty argument. Which one is that? Those that are called extremists and terrorists believe that it is they who are attempting to put an end to terror and save people from their calamities, and their arguments have substance to them. They believe that they are saving the whole world from the plague brought on by the Western, non-Muslim world. You say their arguments have substance to them, but I've never heard anything about their arguments. If you know about them, please tell me. Fine, I shall tell you. But try to reason things through for yourself, and then tell me which of the two warring sides is right. The Muslim spiritual leaders say something along this line to their flock. Look, people, look at what the unfaithful bring. The Western world has sunk into the mire of promiscuity and adultery. It wants to inject its fearful diseases into our children too. Allah's troops must stop the invasion of the unfaithful. Wait, Anastasia, those are mere words. Where are their arguments? They cite facts showing that promiscuity, prostitution, and homosexuality are widespread in the Western, non-Muslim countries. Crime is prevalent. And every day more and more people are using drugs, and they are unable to stop terrifying diseases. AIDS, for example, and drunkenness. And you mean to say that they don't have any of that in the Muslim countries? Vladimir, in the Muslim world, in the Muslim countries, there are far fewer drunkards and smokers. There are far fewer cases of AIDS. Their birth rate is not falling as it is elsewhere, and there is much less marital infidelity. So it turns out both sides are convinced they're fighting for the right cause? Yes. Okay. So what's ahead? The priests believe they have already done everything necessary to initiate and spread large-scale war. The Western countries, the Christians, have joined together to attack the Muslim world. Following this, the Muslim world will come together, ready to fight. But the sides will not be equal. The Muslims have no modern weapons. Then, upon seeing their faithful brethren perish, they will get ready, thousands of terrorists, to make the Western world quit. War will start, but it will be stopped. They will not let it go ahead. Who's going to stop it? Your readers. A new worldview is being formed inside of them, different from the one that has prevailed throughout the past millennia. They are creating it in their dreams. Once dreams begin to turn into reality, all wars and diseases will cease. Do you mean to say that this will come about when the construction of family domains begins? But how do family domains relate to the cessation of conflicts and religious opposition throughout the world? The glad tidings of these domains will keep spreading throughout the world. People all over the globe will be roused out of their hypnotic incarceration. They will awaken from their millennial sleep. They will change their way of life and build a divine world on the earth with inspiration. Of course, Anastasia, if what you say begins to take place, and takes place everywhere on the earth, this world will indeed change. I know that you dream about this. You believe in your dream, and you're never going to betray it, and many people have understood your idea in regard to the family domains. People are starting to take action. But Anastasia, you don't know everything. Come on, come over to my flat and to my office. I have something I want to show you right now. And you'll see and you'll understand for yourself what these people are up against. We shall go, Vladimir, and you will show me what has troubled you so.